Welcome to Tochi Stories. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on post notification because it will mean the whole world to me. Now let's get right into the story. Brace yourself. The courtroom was suffocatingly tense, but the man seated on the right side didn't seem to notice. Kletchi, dressed in an expensive white senator outfit with gold embroidery, leaned back in his chair with his legs crossed, exuding arrogance from every pore. His laughter echoed shamelessly as he signed the divorce papers with a dramatic flourish, tapping the table repeatedly as though he were closing a profitable business deal. His lawyer chuckled alongside him, whispering confidently, "She's walking away with nothing, sir." Kletchi grinned wider. His mistress, a younger lady clad in a skimpy red dress, sat behind him chewing gum, scrolling through her phone like the outcome was already guaranteed. Across the courtroom, Amara sat quietly, her head held high, her deep, rich dark skin glowing under the dull fluorescent lights. She wore a simple gown with her natural hair neatly packed. She didn't flinch, didn't argue. Her face remained unreadable, not cold, not warm, but something far deeper. A strength born not from anger, but from endurance. She held her handbag tightly in one hand and a calm smile in the other. People in the courtroom shifted awkwardly, some murmuring, others sneaking pitiful glances her way, already assuming they knew how this would end. A woman broken, discarded, left with nothing after years of marriage. The judge, an elderly man with half-moon spectacles, flipped through the documents before him. As he turned to one particular file, his fingers paused. His eyes scanned the papers again, slower this time. The court clerk, noticing the change in energy, sat up straighter. Clearing his throat, the judge adjusted his glasses and spoke, his voice slicing through the air like a sharp blade. "Mr. Kletchi, while you claim that the petitioner has no assets or financial contributions to this marriage, the documents presented tell a very different story." Kletchi frowned, leaning forward. "What are you talking about?" he scoffed. The judge continued, ignoring him. "The petitioner, Mrs. Amara Obi, owns 3 commercial properties located in Abuja, a logistics company registered under her maiden name, and an e-commerce distribution firm. Her verified bank balance totals," he glanced back down, "Nigerian naira 684 million naira." The silence was instant. Kletchi's grin shattered. The mistress's chewing gum fell from her mouth. Even the lawyer stared, mouth open, completely lost for words. Years earlier, before bank balances and court summons, there was a different reality. Back then, Amara was just a young woman married to a struggling man with big dreams but empty pockets. Together, they lived in a small one-room apartment with peeling paint and a leaking roof that dripped every time it rained. Amara woke before dawn every day, cooking, cleaning, fetching water from the public tap, and preparing Kletchi for the day. And when he left to try and secure customers for his small electronics repair business, she would carry her basket of puff-puff, zobo, and handmade beaded jewelry to the street corner to sell, praying for customers who often ignored her. But Amara was never lazy. When she wasn't selling, she was at home managing Kletchi's meager records. She handled his books, kept track of customers, followed up on payments, and sometimes even went door-to-door advertising his services. She didn't just build a home, she helped build his business. She lent him her entire savings multiple times just to keep the shop open when rent was due. She pawned her wedding jewelry once when a customer refused to pay and Kletchi needed funds to buy spare parts. Every sacrifice was made in love, not because she was weak, but because she believed they were partners. But Kletchi never saw it that way for long. As small successes started coming, he began changing. His tone shifted from grateful to condescending. "You're doing what any wife should do," he'd often snap whenever she asked for appreciation. "Stop acting like you're doing me a favor." But Amara was not a pushover. Despite her soft-spoken nature, she often warned him, "Kletchi, don't let pride ruin you. Life changes faster than the wind." He would laugh, mocking her. "What do you know? You're nothing without me. Your place is in my shadow." What Kletchi didn't realize was that the woman he belittled was the same woman holding the pieces of his fragile dream together. The days stretched into weeks and weeks into years, yet Amara's routine never changed. Her life was a rotating wheel of survival, sacrifice, and silent endurance. Each morning, long before the first rooster crowed, Amara was up, sweeping the compound, fetching water from a public tap, preparing Kletchi's breakfast, and getting the small roadside puff-puff stand ready. Her hands were always busy, if not frying puff-puff, then making zobo, if not zobo, then sewing bead accessories to sell later. She juggled everything seamlessly, housework, the market, and still found time to manage Kletchi's business records in the evenings. She wasn't just a wife. She was an unpaid secretary, a cleaner, an accountant, a marketer, and a supportive partner. And yet, despite all these, her efforts were invisible to the man she loved. Kletchi's electronics shop, which barely survived when they started, had begun seeing slow but steady growth, thanks in no small part to Amara's behind-the-scenes hustle. Whenever customers delayed payment, it was Amara who followed them up. Whenever the landlord harassed Kletchi over unpaid shop rent, it was Amara who would dip into her puff-puff profits to settle it. Her hands, rough from constant work, were the same hands that fed Kletchi when hunger was their constant companion. But the more the business grew, the less Kletchi acknowledged her. He began walking differently, shoulders higher, chest puffed, voice louder. Small wins made him forget the days of sitting on empty crates together, sharing a single loaf of bread. Success, even though fragile, made him blind to the very hands that shaped it. At first, Amara tried to talk to him, not with anger, but with love, urging him to remain humble, to focus on sustainability rather than showing off. Kletchi, money comes slowly and leaves quickly. Let's focus on building properly. Don't let pride make you lose what you have, she would say gently in the evenings, as they sat together while she balanced the accounts. But her words irritated him. His face would twist in annoyance, his brows knotting like someone being nagged. What do you know about building anything? He snapped one evening. Stop acting like you're doing me a favor. You sell puff-puff on the roadside. Don't mistake that for running a business. You wouldn't understand the hustle I face. His words hit harder than any slap. She blinked, stunned, her lips quivering, but no words came out. The man she once prayed with, dreamed with, was slowly turning into someone unrecognizable, someone who forgot the sacrifices buried beneath his fragile pride. The first time Amara realized money was beginning to corrupt Kletchi was subtle, but unforgettable. It was the day he came home with a new wristwatch, a luxury brand, the kind that cost more than their entire rent for the year. She hadn't seen a deposit into their joint savings account in weeks, and the shop had outstanding supplier debts. So when he flaunted the watch, smiling like a proud child, Amara couldn't hold her tongue. Kletchi, she said softly but firmly, what are you doing? Shouldn't we clear the debts first? This isn't wise. He didn't even look up. He just laughed, a dry, dismissive chuckle that made her stomach twist. Amara, you worry too much. A man must look the part. You won't understand. Stay in your lane. That day, something shifted. Amara stared at him, the man she once knelt with in prayer, the man whose shoes she patched when he couldn't afford new ones, and wondered where the humility had gone. She wasn't trying to belittle him. She only wanted him to succeed without sinking into reckless pride. But the more she tried to advise, the more defensive he became. You're only talking because you've never contributed anything meaningful, he sneered one evening when she reminded him that their rent was overdue. All this nagging like you're the one putting food on this table. If you're tired, the door is open. Those words landed like gunshots to her heart. She knew her worth. But how long could anyone endure being constantly diminished? Despite the emotional bruises, Amara stood her ground. She wasn't loud or confrontational, but she refused to become a silent victim. Be careful, Kletchi, she warned him more than once. Money is like the wind. It can change direction before you even notice. Don't let pride make you lose everything we've suffered to build. But he would roll his eyes, wave his hands as if dismissing an annoying fly, and walk away. Her words meant nothing to him. She was just the wife, the woman who cooked, cleaned, birthed his child, and apparently didn't deserve a seat at the table of his success. He didn't know that the very woman he was mocking was watering a seed, one that would grow taller than the empire he was foolishly gambling away. The day Amara's mother passed was one of the darkest of her life. Her mother was the only person who had ever truly seen her, heard her cries, and reminded her of her worth. As the eldest daughter, Amara had always been the responsible one, and her mother left her the only thing she owned, a small plot of neglected land on the outskirts of Abuja. The land wasn't much. Even her siblings whispered that it was useless, a liability, barely worth anything. But Amara saw more. Where others saw dried grass and a broken fence, she saw opportunity, a future her husband didn't even believe she was capable of creating. Amara made a deliberate choice that day. She didn't tell Kletchi about the land, not out of secrecy born from malice, but because she longed to surprise him. Despite everything, the insults, the disregard, the humiliations, a part of her still hoped that one day she would hand him something beautiful and say, "Look, I built this too." So while she continued running her petty street business to support the household and his shop, she quietly began making inquiries about the land. Her first investment wasn't grand, just renting it out temporarily for event parking and small roadside vendors. It wasn't much, but it was something. Money started trickling in. That trickle became a steady stream. She expanded the usage, leased a portion to a small logistics company looking for storage space. With that rent, she invested in a bulk purchase of imported kitchen appliances, selling them online under her maiden name. Every naira was reinvested. Amara worked during the day and strategized deep into the night when Kletchi was out drinking or with his girlfriends. He never noticed. He was too busy mocking her puff-puff business, laughing with his friends about how he had upgraded beyond his wife's level. "She's still doing local girl hustle," he once said within her earshot, laughing with his mistress. Little did he know, the local girl was building a fortress. When Amara discovered she was pregnant, her heart swelled with conflicting emotions, joy for the life growing inside her, but dread about what it meant for a marriage already hanging by threads. She hoped, foolishly perhaps, that this child would melt Kletchi's hardening heart. But instead of drawing him closer, it pushed him further away. He became angrier, moodier, and outright cruel. "You're about to become even more useless," he muttered one evening, as she vomited into the bathroom sink. "Soon you'll be fat, shapeless, and I'll have to start looking elsewhere." Those words burned more than any slap could. His contribution to the pregnancy was little more than sperm. Amara handled all the antenatal visits herself, paid for by the profits from her side business. When she fainted one hot afternoon from exhaustion, it wasn't Kletchi who took her to the hospital. It was a neighbor. While she worried about baby clothes, medical bills, and baby food, Kletchi spent his evenings in lounges, throwing money at girls half his age, sipping expensive drinks he once couldn't even pronounce. And when he did come home, it was only to shower, change clothes, and leave again, not a single naira offered towards the household or their unborn child. Amara, swollen with pregnancy, still hustled, delivering orders, managing her online store, following up with tenants on her land, and answering customer queries. She endured it all, the physical pain, the emotional abuse, and the loneliness of raising a child while being technically married but functionally abandoned. Her once soft, romantic definition of love had now transformed into something harsher, labor. Endless, thankless labor. Yet through it all, a flame stayed alive within her. She would whisper to herself at night, cradling her belly, "Endure a little more. Just a little more. One day you'll rise." The day Kletchi's words broke something inside Amara, the sun seemed to set faster than usual. She had just returned from a medical checkup, her feet swollen, back aching, with grocery bags dangling from both hands. Kletchi was seated on the couch, scrolling through his phone, laughing at something on Instagram. Not a glance, not a question about how she was feeling. As she lowered the bags, struggling to breathe, he raised his head and scoffed. "Look at you," he sneered, his eyes scanning her bloated figure with disgust. "Just look at what this pregnancy has done to your body. You're fat, shapeless, even walking looks like a burden to you." His words stabbed deeper than any knife could ever reach. Amara stood still, staring at him, searching for a hint of the man she once married, the man she once sacrificed everything for. But there was nothing, Just a stranger with the same face, now filled with cruel arrogance. She swallowed the lump rising in her throat, wiped a silent tear before it escaped, and whispered, "Be careful, Kletchi. This world spins fast. You don't know tomorrow." He burst out laughing. "Tomorrow," he mocked. "What tomorrow? You think I'll still be here, waiting for you to turn into an old cargo? I'm moving forward. You'll always be stuck where I left you. Look at those women out there, beautiful, young, fresh. That's what a man like me deserves." That night, Amara didn't sleep. She lay awake, her hands gently rubbing her belly, whispering promises to her unborn child. "You won't suffer like me. You won't be treated like an afterthought." And as the house grew silent except for the ticking wall clock and Kletchi's snoring from the next room, a room he only entered to change clothes, Amara's mind raced. She wasn't just enduring anymore. No, a shift had occurred. Somewhere between his insults and her own heartbeat, something stronger than pain began to grow, a vow to herself. A vow that one day, whether Kletchi stood by her or not, she would rise. The following months were a storm of chaos and resilience. Every morning, Amara wore two faces, one for the world, where she smiled, greeted neighbors, sold her puff-puff, and managed her online orders with grace. The other was the one she wore at home, stoic, numb, robotic, just trying to survive Kletchi's sharp tongue, cold glares, and suffocating presence. But beneath the quiet, her hustle flourished. The small plot of land her late mother left her, she expanded it, partitioned it into sections, rented them out to food vendors, car wash operators, and mechanics who were desperately looking for affordable spaces. Her online store, once just kitchen appliances, now expanded to home electronics, accessories, and beauty supplies. She negotiated directly with importers, sometimes risking everything by paying up front. She learned fast how to avoid scammers, how to negotiate leases, how to market her business without anyone knowing. Her earnings grew silently. No flashy clothes. No Instagram posts. She lived below her means, hiding every penny where Kletchi's eyes could never wander, because in his eyes Amara was still the same local, unambitious wife. Still frying puff-puff, he'd mock whenever she stepped out to make deliveries. Yet it was her puff-puff that now paid for the house rent he ignored. It was her logistics contract with a local delivery company that covered groceries, medical bills, and school fees. The irony was painful but empowering. Kletchi's money flowed into clubs, hotels, and his side chick's wardrobe. But Amara's money? It flowed into her future, into stability, into something permanent. While Kletchi chased vanity, Amara was building legacy. And every time she transferred rent money to the landlord or paid the child's medical bills, she smiled softly, not from joy, but from the quiet power of knowing she was becoming her own rescue. By the time the baby was born, the marriage had reduced itself to a hollow contract, a marriage in name only. Kletchi barely showed up at the hospital. When he did, it was with a scowl on his face, as though being there was an obligation rather than a moment of joy. The nurses noticed. The neighbors whispered. But Amara no longer cried. Her tears had long dried into quiet acceptance. She signed the discharge papers herself, carried her newborn alone, and returned home, to a house where love had packed its bags and left months ago. At home, Kletchi had turned into a ghost. He lived there, but didn't exist there. He no longer hid his escapades. His phone rang nonstop, names saved as Sweetness, Angel, or sometimes just an emoji. He posted photos online of himself at lounges with slay queens, captioning them soft life. When neighbors questioned him about his disappearing act, he'd shrug, laughing. That woman? A bag. I've outgrown her. She's just there as decoration. I'll soon change furniture. He didn't know that while he joked about changing furniture, the very woman he dismissed was secretly constructing a mansion he could never enter. Amara, meanwhile, focused on two things, her child and her empire. Her tenants expanded. She bought a second piece of land, discreetly registering it under her maiden name. Her online business became so profitable that she started importing goods in bulk containers. But still, she kept her profile low. Let the world think she was just a humble housewife. Let Kletchi mock. Let society pity. They would all learn soon enough. And every night, when her child slept beside her and Kletchi didn't come home, Amara would stare into the darkness and whisper, "Soon, soon, they will all see." It was supposed to be a family gathering, a cousin's birthday party. Amara didn't want to go. Her heart knew that showing up with Kletchi, who had barely spoken to her for weeks, would only bring her more pain. But for the sake of appearances and her child, she dressed in her simplest gown, tied her natural hair into a bun, and carried herself with quiet dignity. As they arrived, the crowd's murmurs began. Kletchi, dressed in a designer agbada, ignored Amara completely, as if they hadn't come together. He walked ahead, barely sparing her a glance. Amara tried to smile, greeting family members who looked at her with pity, some even with concealed mockery. Halfway through the event, Kletchi's phone rang. Without shame, he excused himself from a conversation, only to return moments later, but this time not alone. A young, overly dressed woman in a short red gown, with false lashes long enough to sweep dust, walked in holding his hand. People gasped. Some laughed nervously. Others pretended not to notice. But Kletchi didn't care. With a confident grin, he walked her straight to the center table, where elders Saturday, ladies and gentlemen, he announced. Meet the woman who brings me peace. My stress reliever. My real happiness. His voice carried, intentionally loud enough for Amara, sitting just a few tables away, to hear every word. The laughter that followed felt like knives scraping against Amara's skin. Her hands trembled slightly, but she refused to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing her break. She stood slowly, adjusting her gown with grace, and walked out, not in tears, not with drama, but with a dignity so profound that even the gossipers paused to watch her. Behind her, Kletchi whispered loudly to his side chick, "Good riddance. She's only good for bearing children, not for a man like me." As Amara stepped into her car, her eyes blurred, not from tears, but from the realization that the man she once bled for had chosen to humiliate her not just privately, but now before the world. What he didn't know was that in publicly discarding her, he had unknowingly unleashed a version of her he would soon regret meeting. It wasn't long after the party when Kletchi decided to deliver the final blow. One afternoon, as Amara prepared lunch while breastfeeding her baby, Kletchi stormed into the house, slammed the door, and stood with his hands folded like someone making a royal declaration. "I'm tired, Amara," he began, pacing like a judge ready to sentence a criminal. "Tired of your face. Tired of your presence. Tired of this deadweight you become." Amara blinked, stunned, but said nothing, her arms tightening around her child protectively. "I've made up my mind. I want a divorce. I can't keep carrying someone who adds nothing to my life." His words echoed through the walls like thunder. She wanted to believe she misheard, but the sneer on his face confirmed it wasn't a dream. Amara stood, her knees weak but her spine firm. "So after everything," she asked quietly, "this is what I deserve?" Kletchi scoffed. "Everything," he mocked. "Woman, please. What have you ever done for me? You think frying puff and selling cheap goods online makes you useful? Look at you. You're old. You've let pregnancy destroy your body. I deserve better. You should be grateful I even kept you this long." Her heart shattered, not because of the divorce itself. She had emotionally left this marriage months ago, but because hearing the man she once loved utter such poison made every sacrifice she'd made feel like betrayal against herself. He went further, waving documents in her face. "I've already filed the papers. You're free. Free to go start your miserable life somewhere else. Just know this, you're leaving with nothing. Nothing. This house is mine. The shop is mine. The car is mine. You own absolutely nothing." Amara didn't argue. She didn't scream. She stood there, her baby asleep against her chest, listening. Then, with a slow, steady breath, she nodded. "If this is what you want, Kletchi, then so be it. But remember one thing, life spins fast. Faster than you think." Her words weren't threats. They were prophecies. Words that would soon come to pass. That night, when the house fell silent, Amara sat on the cold kitchen floor, her baby resting peacefully in a woven basket beside her. The walls around her, once filled with dreams and whispered prayers for success, now felt like a prison closing in. For the first time in a long time, she let herself cry. Deep, choking sobs that came from the pit of her stomach. Not because she missed Kletchi. No, she cried for the version of herself that had loved so blindly. For the years lost. For the hands that once carried his burdens while forgetting her own. Why was love never enough? She whispered into the darkness, her tears soaking the tiled floor. As the hours dragged, her crying turned into silence. Then from silence came reflection, and from reflection, clarity. She looked down at her baby, the only pure thing left from this mess, and wiped her tears. "I'm done," she whispered. "I'm done begging to be seen. Done proving my worth. Done waiting for someone to choose me." Her gaze shifted to the drawer where her land documents were hidden. Her online business accounts were still active. Her logistics contracts were still paying. Kletchi didn't know it, but Amara wasn't the woman walking out empty-handed. She was walking out already rich, in more ways than one. By morning, Amara had transformed. The same woman who sat broken on the floor the night before now stood before the mirror with steel in her spine. She tied her hair neatly, wore her cleanest dress, and for the first time in years smiled at her own reflection. Not the smile of a woman trying to pretend everything was fine, but the smile of a woman who finally realized that she was the rescue she had been waiting for. "You thought you were breaking me, Kletchi," she said softly to her reflection. "But you were only breaking the chains." In the days that followed Kletchi's brutal declaration, the streets whispered louder than they ever had. Word spread like wildfire. Kletchi has finally dumped that useless wife. The same friends who once praised Amara's sacrifices turned their backs, siding with the man they thought was their ticket to wealth. Neighbors began avoiding her gaze, whispering as she walked by. Some offered fake pity masked in condescension. Amara, sorry but it's like you couldn't hold your husband," one woman said with a twisted smile, pretending to help her lift her groceries while feeding the gossip mill. What none of them knew was that beneath her silence, something powerful was brewing. Kletchi, meanwhile, walked through the neighborhood like a peacock in full display. Every corner saw him boasting. "I gave her everything. She contributed nothing. Let her start her life from zero," he bragged to anyone who cared to listen. His side chick, now emboldened, accompanied him everywhere, laughing loudly, sitting in his car, even visiting his shop as though she were now the new wife. The betrayal was no longer private. It was loud, proud, and intentional. On social media, Kletchi posted cryptic captions like "out with the old in with the fresh," accompanied by pictures of dinners, club nights, and expensive drinks. His followers cheered him on, men calling him chairman, women calling him boss. The cruelty was suffocating. But inside her small room, Amara worked quietly. Her lawyer had prepared the response to the divorce suit, but along with it, he drafted a full disclosure of her assets, businesses, properties, and bank balances, all legally protected under her maiden name. Kletchi had no idea what was coming. As he mocked her publicly, she finalized the purchase of yet another plot of land. Her online business expanded further. Her logistics contract with a delivery company had now been renewed for another 2 years, worth millions. Her bank account swelled, but her lifestyle remained humble. No flashy clothes, no makeup, no announcements. Let them think she was finished. Let them laugh for now. The day the court summons arrived, Kletchi was reclining in his shop with his side chick seated comfortably on his lap, sipping bottled juice while scrolling through Instagram. When the court official handed him the document, he snatched it with the arrogance of a man too confident to care. "Good," he smirked. "Let's finalize this nonsense. She'll leave with her handbag and wrapper." His side chick giggled, kissing his cheek, while customers in the shop laughed along. "Finally, Olga is free," one of his apprentices whispered, shaking his head as though congratulating a newly crowned king. But as court day approached, Amara was a different woman. She dressed differently, not expensive, but elegant. Her natural hair was tied back neatly, her face clean, her posture straight. Her walk no longer weighed down by humiliation, but powered by confidence. Friends who once mocked her were confused. They expected a woman drowning in sorrow, but instead saw a woman whose silence felt heavier than thunder. Amara wasn't coming to court to beg for anything. She was coming to end an era and open a new chapter that none of them were prepared for. On the morning of the court date, Kletchi arrived in style. A white Mercedes-Benz, music blasting, side chick in tow. Dressed in a designer outfit, sunglasses on, he walked into the courtroom like a celebrity at a press conference. His lawyer grinned beside him, already rehearsing how they would strip Amara of any claims. Friends and family, both his and hers, filled the courtroom, some with smirks, others with folded arms, ready for the show. But the only person not rattled by the chaos was Amara. She walked in alone, carrying nothing but her handbag, dignity, and a folder that would soon become the match to Kletchi's carefully stacked lies. The courtroom settled into silence as the judge, an elderly man with silver-rimmed glasses and a voice that demanded respect, adjusted his files. He listened first to Kletchi's lawyer, who was more than happy to gloat. "Your Honor," the lawyer began smugly, "this case is quite simple. My client has been the sole breadwinner. The respondent, Mrs. Amara Obi, has contributed nothing tangible to this marriage. As such, my client seeks full rights to the properties, assets, and business while offering a token settlement out of goodwill." Kletchi nodded proudly, arms crossed, his gaze occasionally drifting toward Amara with a satisfied smirk. The judge scribbled a few notes, then nodded. "Very well. Let's proceed to the petitioner's financial disclosures," he said, flipping the file in front of him. His eyes scanned the first page, then paused. His brow furrowed. He flipped another page, then another. The courtroom sensed a change. The atmosphere shifted from boredom to curiosity. His fingers tapped the desk, and with a voice as calm as it was sharp he asked, "Mrs. Amara Obi, can you confirm that this document reflects your current assets?" Amara stood. "Yes, Your Honor. It is accurate." Kletchi frowned. "Assets," he muttered under his breath, confused. Then the judge cleared his throat and began reading. "The petitioner owns 3 commercial buildings in Abuja valued at 420 million Nigerian nairas, a logistics company registered under her maiden name, an online retail company with a current valuation of 88 million Nigerian nairas, and 2 undeveloped plots of land in Lagos. Additionally, her verified bank account holds a balance of 684,372,000 Nigerian nairas as of the latest statement submitted to this court." The courtroom gasped. A loud, collective inhale, like the air had been sucked out of the room. Kletchi's mouth fell open. His lawyer nearly dropped his pen, and even the side chick bent her head slowly, pretending to disappear. The man who had mocked her laughed at her, and paraded his disrespect for all to see, sat frozen, his laughter silenced, his pride crushed. The judge flipped the page again, but the damage was already done. The silence that followed the judge's reading was heavier than any words that could have been spoken. You could hear the faint buzz of the courtroom fan and the distant honk of a car outside. Everything else was still. Kletchi sat frozen, his jaw hanging slightly, his eyes darting rapidly between Amara and the judge, trying to make sense of what he just heard. It felt like someone had yanked the floor from beneath him. His mind raced, searching for a logical explanation. "This is a mistake. This can't be real," he whispered to himself. His lawyer shifted uncomfortably, flipping through papers, sweating profusely. Even the side chick, who had once been glued to her phone and chewing gum arrogantly, had now tucked her phone away and quietly lowered her head, praying for the ground to open and swallow her. The murmurs in the courtroom grew louder. "Wait, she's richer than him," someone gasped. "All this time she acted poor, she was building an empire," another whispered. A few older women in the audience shook their heads, sighing deeply, not out of pity for Kletchi, but out of a realization that pride truly does come before a fall. Even his own relatives, who once sided with him and mocked Amara, now exchanged guilty glances, avoiding her gaze, ashamed of the roles they played in her suffering. As the murmurs grew louder, the judge banged his gavel hard. "Order in court," he thundered. The courtroom fell silent again, but this time the silence was heavy with shame, and not for Amara. Kletchi, gathering whatever was left of his shattered dignity, tried to speak. Your Honor, this isn't, it's not accurate, he stammered. The judge didn't even glance at him. Mr. Kletchi, it is very accurate. Documents were submitted, verified, and cross-checked by the court. Every asset listed belongs solely to Mrs. Amara Obi. All businesses were registered under her maiden name. All properties acquired through her personal funds and have nothing to do with the joint marital income. Kletchi buried his face in his palms. He felt the sting, not just of humiliation, but of realization. The woman he called useless, the woman he dragged in the mud, was sitting quietly, wealthier than he could ever dream of. And worst of all, he had no claim to a single naira. The judge's next words were a final nail in the coffin of Kletchi's arrogance. This court hereby rules that Mr. Kletchi has no claim to the petitioner's properties, businesses, or financial assets. All were legally acquired independently. This court also finds that due to abandonment, verbal abuse, and gross misconduct, the respondent, Mr. Kletchi, shall vacate the jointly rented home within 14 days. Furthermore, he shall contribute monthly child support in the amount of 250,000 Nigerian nairas until the child reaches adulthood. The gavel struck the wood. The finality of it echoed like thunder in Kletchi's ears. Kletchi leapt to his feet. Your Honor, no, you can't do this. She was nothing when I met her. She was nothing. This is my house. My money. My sit down Amara Kletchi, the judge roared. His voice boomed, slamming against every wall in the room. You contributed nothing to those assets. Nothing. This woman built herself despite your mistreatment, not because of your help. You had the audacity to file for divorce thinking she would walk away with nothing. Instead, you walk away with only your clothes and your broken pride. Let this be a lesson to you, and to every man who thinks a good woman is a stepping stone. The spectators gasped. Some clapped quietly. Others smiled, shaking their heads. The judge didn't just deliver a ruling. He delivered justice. Kletchi slumped back into his chair, trembling. His lawyer sat with his head down, unable to meet anyone's eyes. The side chick had already stood up, quietly edging toward the exit like a rat fleeing a sinking ship. Kletchi noticed her movement and shot a furious glare, but it was useless. The woman who once flaunted herself as his upgrade now couldn't even look him in the face. She disappeared into the hallway before the session ended. As Kletchi sat drowning in his own humiliation, his eyes met Amara's. For the first time in years, he saw something terrifying in her gaze. Not hatred, not anger. Power. Silent, unshakable power. She didn't smirk. She didn't mock. She simply watched, the way a mountain watches a pebble crumble. News travels fast, but gossip travels faster. By the time Kletchi stepped out of the courtroom, the entire neighborhood already knew. WhatsApp groups were flooded. Facebook was buzzing. The woman he mocked is richer than him. Blog headlines popped up almost instantly. Kletchi's ex-wife walks out a millionaire. He walks out a joke. His side chick's pictures with him were now captioned with laughing emojis and phrases like gold digger fails mission and chairman without chair. Customers started withdrawing from his shop. Some outright demanded refunds. Old friends stopped taking his calls. His supposed brothers muted the group chat they once used to hail him. As for Amara, the moment she walked out of the court building, a new reality met her. Reporters tried to swarm her for comments, but she waved them off politely. Her lawyer shielded her, guiding her to a sleek black SUV. Her SUV. The one Kletchi thought she couldn't possibly afford. As the driver opened the door, she slid in gracefully, her head held high. Through the tinted glass, she saw Kletchi standing on the steps, disoriented, broken, alone. For a brief moment, their eyes locked again. This time, there was no bitterness in her heart. Only clarity. Only freedom. I wasn't leaving with nothing, Kletchi, she whispered to herself. I was leaving with everything that mattered, my dignity, my peace, and my future. As the SUV pulled away, Amara finally smiled. Not the fake smiles she'd worn for years to survive humiliation, but a real one. A smile of freedom. Of victory. Her phone buzzed. A message from her realtor popped up. Congratulations, Ma. The Abuja commercial property sale has cleared. 210 million Nigerian nairas has been credited to your account. She laughed, a laugh so free, so genuine, that even the driver chuckled without knowing why. She turned to look at her baby in the back seat, fast asleep, innocent and unaware of the storm they had just conquered. This is our new beginning, she whispered. And it's only the start. As the car cruised smoothly through the city, Amara leaned back, letting the gentle hum of the engine drown out the noise of her past. Her phone kept buzzing. Friends, enemies pretending to be friends, long-lost relatives suddenly remembering her name. But she ignored them all. None of them were there when she cried herself to sleep. None of them helped when Kletchi called her useless. And now, as the news of her victory spread like wildfire, they wanted to be associated with her success. She smiled softly, not out of spite, but from the sweet realization that she didn't need validation from anyone. Not anymore. Kletchi, meanwhile, sat on the courthouse steps long after everyone had left. His phone rang nonstop, but these weren't calls of support. They were from creditors, disappointed customers, and landlords who no longer wanted to renew his shop lease. His side chick was gone, disappeared like smoke, blocking his number, deleting every photo they ever took together. His own friends, the same men who once hyped him for flaunting his freedom, now mocked him in private. How can a whole man not know his wife was richer than him? Became the joke in every bar, every WhatsApp group, and every street corner. The same mouth he used to insult Amara was now sealed, not by shame alone, but by the bitter taste of karma. When Amara arrived home, her own home, not the rented apartment where Kletchi once mocked her, she stepped out of the car with her baby in one arm and her bag in the other. The security guard greeted her with a respectful bow. The gate slid open to reveal a modest but beautiful compound with her own garden, her own office, and her own peace. As she stepped into her living room, her phone buzzed again. It was her bank notification. Nigerian Naira 35.6 million credited. Logistics contract renewal payment. She laughed softly. This was the life she built, with her own hands, through her own sweat. Not from Kletchi. Not from anyone. He thought he was breaking me, she whispered, rocking her child. But I was already built. A week later, as Kletchi stumbled around his now empty shop, shelves bare, customers gone, his landlord threatening eviction, he caught a glimpse of something on his phone. It was a video someone had secretly recorded of the court hearing. The caption read, "When you think she's nothing, but she's the whole table." The comments were brutal. Some mocked. Some laughed. Some even offered him unsolicited advice. Next time, respect women. Others typed, "If it be you, be careful how you treat your wife." His hands trembled as he scrolled, realizing that not only had he lost Amara, but he had also lost his respect, his reputation, and his own identity. As for Amara, she sat on her balcony that evening, sipping fresh juice, her baby playing with toys beside her. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and gold, a perfect metaphor for her life, from the darkest nights to the brightest mornings. Her phone buzzed again, this time not with gossip or noise, but with a notification from her lawyer. "Ma, the final deed for the third property in Lekki has been signed. Congratulations, you now own it outright." She smiled, a real, deep smile that came from the core of her being. No more pretending. No more enduring. She was now the architect of her own destiny. She stood up, walking toward her baby, scooping him into her arms, and whispered, "You will grow knowing your mother was never weak. I stayed because I believed in love. But I left because I believed in myself." As the cool evening breeze kissed her skin, she looked toward the horizon and said softly, "Goodbye, Kletchi, not out of bitterness, but because your chapter in my life is closed. I wish you healing, but from far away." And as the sun disappeared below the skyline, Amara stepped back inside, not as a woman broken by love, but as a queen crowned by her own resilience. The woman who once walked in shadows, now walked in her own light. Thank you for watching this video. What did you learn from this story? Drop it in the comments. Please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel Tochi Stories for more.